Dear friends and followers, welcome back to my channel. Greetings from home. I happen to have today off. I couldn't do my live stream, and that's because I had an emergency call into work yesterday. So I hope y'all are doing amazing out there. And I need to talk with y'all about this because I've seen some bad behaviors out on the road, and these are my top 5 worst trucker behaviors. If you do any one of these, then you're asking for trouble, whether it be being reported by another driver or perhaps being turned into law enforcement or just having to deal with consequences later. So let me get started. So let's talk about my top 5 worst trucker behaviors out on the road. And if you are guilty of any of these behaviors, I need you to go back, read that CDL manual that you got with your truck and with your license. And when I say that, I mean your driver's manual and your state DOT manual. Because with that, you can learn some interesting things that might help you in the end. Number 1. This is my biggest pet peeve, and that's the rolling roadblock. I also call it the Canadian drag race, where 2 Canadians or 2 company trucks with governors get side by side and just slow everybody down when everybody's trying to get somewhere during this whole pandemic situation. Speed counts. If you're doing side by side at the speed limit, you still need to back off a little bit and let the other guy pass you. But if you're doing 62 side by side with one of you in the hammer lane and the other one in the right lane blocking the whole highway, you are the problem. And that's why I got myself a dash cam this past weekend, to ensure that you get shamed here on YouTube for that kind of behavior. That frustrates me. So that way I don't have to call law enforcement and I don't have to deal with the consequences later, and I don't have to hit the button on my much more expensive LitX drive cam. Because, I mean, that hitting the button on there is $1 a use or more. And I don't want to have to keep doing that. On to number 2. Okay. Number 2. Reading the wrong side of your speedometer. There's this little black and white sign alongside of the road that says speed limit blank miles per hour. Now, if you're in Canada, it'll sub a K for the M. In other words, it'll sub kilometers per miles. If you don't know how to read that sign and translate it to the proper side of your speedometer, you do not belong driving down here. Because 70 kilometers an hour is roughly 35 miles an hour. And that, my friends, is damned slow. We use miles per hour here in the United States for a reason. It's because, let's just say, it's 27 hours just to get from Fort Worth, Texas, or Dallas, Texas, out to the New Jersey coast. And that's not to mention trying to go straight across via Interstate 80 instead. So, there's a reason why we have high speed limits here. In fact, here in Texas, our speed limits rival those of Germany's Autobahn. Okay, so talk about a fast highway. State Highway 130 and parts of Interstates 10 and 20 have speed limits in excess of 80 miles per hour. That, you heard that right. 80 miles per hour, not kilometers. So make sure that you're reading the correct speed limit for your area. And if you're in doubt, we've got some special curve signs for you that actually say it. And we've also got state troopers at the ready down here, just in case you're going too slow. Now on to number 3. Number 3 on my list is junk equipment. Simply put, if you're running a trailer without a license plate and decals, if you're running a tractor whose headlights aren't working, if you're running a trailer whose taillights aren't working, you're asking for disaster. I mean, if you look in the front of the Rand McNally Motor Carriers Road Atlas, there's a big old diagram called the circle check. It shows a graphic of a tractor trailer and all of the points you need to visually look at and check before you go out on the road with a tractor trailer or your car for that matter. You need to make sure that you're doing all these maintenance items, because if you're not, you're asking for trouble. And these kinds of failures can lead to not only you getting pulled over by law enforcement or getting into a crash, but also they can lead to fires. They can lead to you breaking down alongside the road, and they can lead to you not being able to communicate when you need to. So, please inspect your vehicle. On to number 4. Number 4. Faggot lights. These are those super bright off-road driving lights that many foreign tractor trailer drivers decide to run instead of replacing their headlight bulbs with better ones. Okay? So, if you're running something that is not like a Sylvania Silver Star or a Philips LED hue bulb in your truck, I'm talking with you. Now, if you're running the Silver Stars or the hue bulbs or whatever, I'm not going to worry about your problem, because you've got a whole different issue, and it might be on your truck OEM. But if you're running one of those big-ass LED light bars in the center of the bumper, or if you're running one of those sets of fog lights that didn't come with your truck or isn't designed for use with your truck, that's where I have a problem. And by that, I mean, why? Are deer so scary that, or are your headlights so crappy that you couldn't benefit just from changing the light bulbs? Because if that's the case, then you need to talk with your truck OEM. Recently, one of the famous crash testing agencies here in the United States, namely the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, did tests on a lot of vehicles with these older generation headlights, like what some of you truckers run. Let me tell you, a lot of them failed that test. And the fix is, in many cases, as easy as changing a light bulb. Upgrading to LED bulbs or to higher intensity discharge bulbs, as long as they're designed for your truck, can actually prevent you from having an incident. So instead of getting the off-road light bar, just change your headlights and you'll change your life. In fact, you can look up those headlight ratings right now at iihs.org. and just search for any vehicle. I highly suggest searching the Toyota Tundra and the Ford F-150 to show you how terrible the headlights are on those. Because the LEDs on both models tend to blind people, and the non-LED lights don't always produce the best visibility. So there's a thought. And that's why I'm mentioning both models. Number 5 coming up. So number 5 on my list is your inability to communicate. Now, I get it if you're running without a radio because your truck has a trash antenna. But in that case, you need to learn the old school hand signals. Disco lights ahead. Headlight or tail light out. Single headlight or tail light out. Back off. Eyes up. Phone down. If you can't learn that stuff, and I'm just using those as examples, then please get out of trucking. Because, I mean, you're too reliant on tech to solve your problem. And if you don't have a radio and you don't understand those signals, especially if you're new to the industry, it's a good idea to talk with someone with more experience who knows that kind of stuff. So that way, you can have an edge over somebody else. So like if a guy's doing this to you, it means that your headlights or taillights are out. If a guy does the same thing in your mirror, it means to shut your faggot light off and dim your high beams back down to low. Simple as that. And if you don't know any of this stuff, by gosh, there's a drive cam waiting overhead in my truck. And a dash cam, which is soon to be installed on one of my mobile mounts whenever I'm running. So if you can't behave yourself, well, and if you can't learn from us more experienced drivers, you're bound to have that little disco light coming behind you. So, make sure that you're following the law, following the flow of traffic, and get yourself in the zone where you're relaxed and comfortable and one with the truck. And if you have no idea on how this stuff works, there's 2 books I encourage you to get. One of which is your state's driver's manual. Please read it and review before you take off. And the other one is your truck maker's driver's manual, which is usually located in your overhead console or in your glove box or somewhere else in your cab. It may be in a drawer somewhere. It may be in a hidden compartment. Search your truck for it, read it, and if it's not in your truck, you can always download one from your truck maker's website so that you know how your truck is supposed to work. And if anything's wrong, do not hesitate to call your dealer or maintenance shop and have them thoroughly check it out. Of course, some problems are more obvious than others. Like that. Flat tire. So, anyways, if we're trying to hand signal you, or if we're trying to reach you on the radio and you don't respond, chances are you'll be the next famous dash cam video on YouTube, or you will be in the back of a cop car before you know it. So please behave yourselves out there. Keep learning, keep thinking, keep on trucking. And let's make your best trip your next trip. Bye for now.